All right, welcome to the freedom to draw unsolved mysteries. I am your host, John. Today's case, we have the case of a stalker because it's Stalker Awareness Month in January. This is the case of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. And we're going to draw him today. And we're going to tell you a little bit about his story. How he is one of the most dangerous stalkers ever to live. From Gary Ridgway's first victim to his eventual capture and arrest, here are the key moments from his killing spree that claimed the lives of at least 48 women. It's a lot of people. This guy was a definite problem for authorities. And he must have done it for a while to kill 48. That's a lot. Claiming to have murdered as many as 80 women, Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer from Seattle, Washington, with a location where many of his victims were discovered, was America's deadliest convicted serial killer, when in 2003 he pleaded guilty to 48 counts of murder. Over 20 years, Ridgway methodically raped and strangled scores of women, many of them prostitutes or runaways, dumping their bodies across a wide area of King County to confuse authorities. Investigators believed that throughout his murderous spree, the seemingly mild-mannered Ridgway never spoke to anyone of his killings or kept trophies of the grisly crimes. All the while, he maintained his longtime job as a truck painter at the Kenworth truck plant in Renton, and married for the third time. July 15th, 1982. The body of Ridgway's first victim is discovered. In July 1982, children found the strangled body of Wendy Caulfield, 16, floating in Seattle's Green River. Over the following weeks, 4 more bodies were discovered in or along its banks. All women are strangled. On August 15th, 3 more bodies were found, and Detective David Reichart was one of the first authorities to arrive at the scene. Marcy Chapman, 31, was found in the shallow water alongside the naked body of 17-year-old Cynthia Hines, and nearby in the undergrowth lay the body of Opal Mills, 16, blue trousers knotted around her neck, breasts exposed, bruises apparent on her arms and legs. So this guy definitely got away with it for a long time. Maybe one of the lesser known serial killers, but was very deadly. And he stalked his victims at night in a car, rolling up and down the streets looking for prostitutes or at-risk teens or runaways. That's what he was looking for, guys. And that was his MO. And he would just scan the streets. That's how he stalked. He was a definite stalker. Dangerous, deadly stalker. Has some evil eyes, doesn't he? August 16th, 1982, a police task force is set up. After the King County Sheriff's Office set up the Green River Task Force to investigate the killings, the body count rose as more victims were discovered along the river and in the area around the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Over the next 2 years, the Green River Killer sexually assaulted and murdered more than 40 other women. Every time he found a body, it was like being hit on the head with a baseball bat, Reichert told reporters. April 30th, 1983, Ridgway first becomes a suspect. In the spring of '83, prostitute Marie Malvar, 18, was last seen by her boyfriend getting into a paint-patched pickup with a dark-haired man about 30 to 40 years old. 4 days later, police questioned Ridgway at his home about his knowledge of Malvar, whom he denied even knowing. In November, police once again spoke with Ridgway about the murders, but he denied any knowledge of the victims, and authorities lacked evidence to connect him to any of the crimes. So they did have him as a person of interest on this case. Not enough evidence to convict. Seems like that plays out in a lot of cases. I know he had a hatred for prostitutes. That's one thing, Mr. Ridgway. He may have been one of those psychopaths that actually thought they were doing society a service, getting rid of the prostitutes and the undesirables. Some kind of sick thinking like that. In his mind, he may have thought he was doing a service to mankind, which is definitely far off, way out of base, way off base. But you never know what was going on in the mind of this guy. In 2003, Ridgway told investigators he stood against a fence during his original 1983 questioning to conceal scratches Malvar had left on his arm while trying to escape. Ridgway said he then burned the scratches with battery acid to disguise them once the detectives had left. In May 1984, Ridgway passes a polygraph test. Already a person of interest due to his known association with area prostitutes, Ridgway contacted police with the supposed intention of assistance. He then passed a polygraph test in which he denied killing any women. In 1986, the police talked with Ted Bundy. With few reliable leads in the Green River Killer case, authorities were desperate for any information to further the investigation. Having read about the ongoing case in the press, convicted serial killer Ted Bundy wrote to Reichardt offering his help in the case. Reichardt flew to Florida where Bundy was being held on death row. During discussions, Bundy reportedly advised authorities that the killer may be revisiting his victims' corpses and performing sexual acts on them, a hypothesis Ridgway later confirmed. So here you have one of the most sadistic, sick serial killers, Ted Bundy, caught, apprehended, sentenced to death, and trying to get on authorities' good side by offering his help in catching this guy. Kind of a sick and twisted game, but the history tells us that it did help on his apprehension, the assistance of Ted Bundy. And that's another reason why you cannot ever quite figure out the mind of Bundy. He was on a different level. Just a sick, twisted individual. But yet he was cunning and smart. Used this guy to buy him some time from the electric chair, I believe. In 1987, Ridgway provides a DNA sample that would eventually be his downfall. Because Ridgway was the last person allegedly seen with the two of the victims, police eventually searched his home and vehicles in 1987. In connection with the murders, it was at that time Ridgway finally provided police with a saliva sample that would later tie him to the crimes. But due to insufficient DNA testing at the time, Ridgway remained a free man for more than a decade. March 2001, DNA testing expands and connects Ridgway to 3 murders. With new techniques in forensic testing at their disposal, investigators re-examine evidence from across the years the killer had been active. It was a last-ditch effort. Beverly Himmock of Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory forensic scientists told the press, "We didn't have a lot of time to work with, but we went through a lot of evidence again. We rinsed all the fingernails to look for trace evidence and swabbed the ligatures for cellular materials. With one girl, we were able to find a few sperm clinging to her pubic hair." New DNA profiles from 3 victims were compared with Ridgway's thanks to the saliva sample he provided in 1987. It was a match in all 3 cases. So he seemingly thought he had duped authorities at the time, but it later became his downfall. November 30th, 2001, police announced the arrest of the Green River Killer. Nearly 2 decades after the first murder, King County Sheriff Reichert announced that Ridgway, 52, was arrested in connection with 4 of the Green River killer's early victims: Marcia Chapman, Opal Mills, Cynthia Hines, and Carol Ann Christensen, whose body was recovered in 1983. November 5th, 2003. Ridgway pleads guilty. In a plea bargain that would spare him the death penalty in return for his confession and information regarding the details of the murders and locations of the bodies, Ridgway entered a guilty plea to 48 charges of aggravated first-degree murder. "I killed so many women I have a hard time keeping them straight," Ridgway said in a statement to the press, admitting he killed most of his victims in his house or truck before disposing of their bodies, adding that in most cases he did not even know his victims' names. "Most of the time I killed them the first time I met them, and I do not have a good memory for their faces." Explaining why he chose women he thought to be prostitutes, Ridgway said they were easy to pick up without being noticed. "I knew they would not be reported missing right away and might never be reported missing. I picked prostitutes because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught." 2003, December 18th. Ridgway is sentenced. For his crimes, a King County Superior Court judge sentenced Ridgway to 48 life sentences to be served consecutively without possibility of parole. So I'm thinking he was a fan of when Ted Bundy got executed in '89. When he looked back on it, he probably was glad, because that's the man that ultimately led to his capture. So you can thank Ted Bundy for capturing this scumbag. And there you have it, guys. This is the case of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. One of the most deadliest stalkers ever to walk the face of the earth. Now the article does not say if he's still alive. I'm thinking he is still alive. He gets to rot in his cell for 48 consecutive life sentences. Hasn't even completed one of them. He'll never get out. Just not a very good reason why he killed all these people either. Just so he could think he could get away with it easier. That was his explanation. You don't know what these guys go on in their heads, really. And I don't think you want to know. Something wrong with this guy. He couldn't go out and get a girlfriend on his own. I mean, he's not a bad looking guy. He could have got a girlfriend. Could have had a wife and kids. Could have settled down. But no, he chose to kill prostitutes as a way of life. Doesn't make sense to me. He's off the streets though, rotting in jail. This is the case of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, guys. And this is John from the Freedom to Draw Unsolved Mysteries. Peace out.